Story 1. Honestly, probably not. I would like to think I could survive, but after a week without wireless internet and decent food, I would probably just let the zombies take me. Story 2. Depends. World War Z zombies? No. The Walking Dead zombies? Absolutely, but probably not for very long. I guess I would make it a few years, probably. Story 3. I would end my life as soon as things became truly bleak. I am not eager to try to survive in an apocalypse. Story 4. No, because of statistics. I believe without modern infrastructure, most of us will starve in the first year, no matter how tough we think we are. Story 5. When the chips are down, these civilized people will eat each other. If a zombie apocalypse ever happens, I am not concerned about zombies. They will be gone. It will be the survivors who will be the reason why we will not make it. Story 6. First sign of trouble. I am stealing a yacht with a water maker. I will get to a small defendable island. Zombies will not be a problem. The problem will be the rest of humanity. Story 7. No, too old, out of shape and overweight. I am zombie food. Plus, my dogs would betray me. They bark at everything. Story 8. Define survive. If you mean the initial outbreak and the weeks or months that follow, technically the apocalypse itself, then yes, I can do that. But if you mean long-term, like getting the chance to help rebuild society years later, then probably not. It also depends on the type of zombie. Are we talking mindless shamblers like in The Walking Dead? Or are they intelligent and able-bodied? Is it a viral infection or a different kind? Is it airborne or purely transferred by bites or scratches? Story 9. Asthma. I am dead. On the plus side, as a zombie, I can finally move as much as I like without feeling like I am being cut by razor blades. Silver linings, brains. Story 10. This does depend on the type of zombie. If it is those fast zombies, I cannot run well and will most definitely be eaten. Story 11. Maybe. It is really hot where I live, which would greatly accelerate the decomposition of a dead body, so the zombies would not be doing very well. I also have no food in the house, and they might be living body-style zombies. So it is a maybe. Story 12. Absolutely, I would not repeat all the typical horror movie mistakes. I would not scream hysterically. I would not hide in the obvious places. I would go throughout the house while keeping the lights on. I would not trip and fall over my own feet like they always do. I would not hesitate to stop them quickly. I can walk faster than 1.5 miles per hour. Story 13. It really depends on the zombies, but probably not. I likely do not have the cardiovascular endurance needed. I have everything else, though. I have spent 4 weeks alone in the Arctic with just a tent, completed 500-kilometer portage hikes living only off food I caught. I know how to preserve, can grow, trap, catch, and clean my own food. I know how to make shelter and stay warm. I have basic knowledge of how to use guns and am skilled with a bow. I believe the problems start and end with the fact that I probably could not run kilometers at a time. Story 14. Shoo. I went outside and talked to people. I think it started years ago. Surviving okay so far. Story 15. Like realistic zombies that suffer from the effects of dead flesh or a rabies-like virus, I could hold up in my house for a week until it dies out. Story 16. Probably not for long. If I have to be quiet at any point, I am pregnant and have a toddler. I cannot keep the toddler quiet, and if I figure out how, I would not be able to keep the baby from crying. Story 17. Are they slow like in The Walking Dead? Or are they fast like in 28 Days Later? If the former, I think I can survive. If the latter, I am dead meat. Story 18. I live in a somewhat rural area where everyone has firearms, so by the time the zombies reached us, I think we would be fine. Story 19. I would survive as long as my mental state holds out, which likely would not be very long, and even less if people I care about were lost to the apocalypse. Then I would just, as they say in Dead by Daylight, go next. Story 20. I am overweight, so others would keep me alive until livestock and food become scarce. I will survive a few months to a year at best. Story 21. Probably not. People are selfish now. Imagine what they will do for survival. If the zombies do not get us, the people will. You do not have to look far. Just look at the people around you and their selfish thinking. They are not the most stable. I give myself maybe 2 weeks. Story 22. I know I can. I am a wilderness survival expert who has enjoyed more than my fair share of zombie games, movies, and books. I would grab my bug-out bag and disappear deep into the woods until it was all over. Story 23. I watched The Walking Dead, so I am quite knowledgeable on the subject and would have no problem surviving. Story 24. I think I will survive because if it is a virus making people become zombies, then I will have more time to run and prepare. I live in a small neighborhood, so there will not be many zombies. I will learn many things in a zombie apocalypse that I probably would not have access to if there was no apocalypse, which will help with boredom. However, it depends on how long the apocalypse lasts. If everyone on Earth became a zombie and I was left alone, I would not survive, and there would be no reason to. Even if you survive after the apocalypse ends, no one would be left on Earth except you. Animals and humans would become extinct. This is just my opinion. Story 25. Yes, rural suburban area less than 3 miles away from the family farm. Plus, I have a safe full of suppressed guns, which usually helps. Story 26. I feel like yes, if I could get to a car fast enough with an emergency kit. Assuming the infection doesn't start very close to me, because then I am probably in serious trouble. Story 27. It depends on the type of zombies and how they originate. If it is a highly contagious virus with a very high mortality rate, no one can say for certain that they would survive the virus, let alone the zombies. Story 28. Could I? Maybe. Would I bother? Only as long as my cats needed me. This is a bit odd, but when I watched The Walking Dead, all I could think about was the smell that must have been everywhere between the zombies and all the dead bodies. No thanks. Story 29. No, I have very needy family members who cannot even get themselves out the door. Prior military service. I would have a decent chance without them, but I would have to die with them to be honest. Story 30. I think I could. I know how to use weapons and have access to many. I know how to grow my own fruits and vegetables and how to hunt and butcher animals for food. Now, would I want to survive? No. I am breaking into the first pharmacy I can find and going out in a haze of whatever pills I can find so I can go in peace. I do not want to live in a constant state of fear and panic. Story 31. No, I have several small children who are incapable of surviving on their own, and as a parent, I would do anything to protect them, even if that simply means dying with them. Story 32. Probably. I have a strong stomach and immune system. I can start and cook over a fire. There are many grocery stores and gas stations very close to me. I have a bike. The grocery stores and gas stations might be empty quickly since I live in a city. If that happens, I have a garden in the backyard that will easily last me months, and we are close to harvesting. I also have a lot of pent-up rage that I can use when in danger. Story 33. What kind of zombies, though? The fast spider-looking ones or the slow-walking dumb ones? If I can survive 5 kids, I can definitely beat some brain-dead skinbags. Story 34. Honestly, probably not. The type of zombies matters to an extent, but where I live is pretty landlocked. One of my first aims would be to try to get to the sea because I have never seen swimming zombies. I say one of because the first priority is gathering family and supplies. Or I would go to Rill. When the zombies arrive there, they would look around and say, actually, I think we must have already done this place. Let's turn around. Story 35. Survive? Man, I am tired. I do not want to survive anything. I am okay with walking around mindlessly looking for food. It is what I do for fun in my free time anyway. Story 36. For a little while, I am a crazy overshopper, so we could survive weeks on the food in the house. We would just lock the doors and stay inside. Story 37, Scenario 1. If there was no cure and they were those fast zombies like in World War Z, no. Not at all prepared. I hate running. People would go crazy and try to get all supplies at once, causing huge overcrowding and fights. I would want someone to end my life quickly, to be honest. If you have children involved, making sure they are protected would add more to the chaos. I feel I would be too anxious because of how fast they are, and I would not have the mental capacity to learn how to survive. Scenario 2. Slow zombies like in The Walking Dead, with or without a cure, I would definitely try. I feel healthy enough to run if they were around and learn the skills needed to protect and care for myself and family since they move slowly. If they are anything like the zombies in The Last of Us, that is a no for me. Story 38. Nothing, honey. Just watching something on television. Go back to bed. I'll join you in a few. Story 39. My children will probably be the death of me. However, the rural, wooded landscape has lots of empty cabins. We can hunt, fish, and know the land. If the zombies do not get me during the spring, summer, and fall, then winter will probably kill me. Story 40. I would die in a few months. I had a kidney transplant recently. If society were to collapse and I could not get my immunosuppressants, my body would reject the new kidney, it would get infected, and it would kill me. Story 41. It is difficult since I have 2 children and a spouse. We cannot agree on dinner most nights, and I feel like a fool, so yes, they are no longer alive. Story 42. As a whole, we might survive because we have all seen zombie movies. If it is just the recently dead, I think enough of us will be ready to destroy the brain. Hopefully they are shamblers, not runners or rage zombies. Spore zombies would be pretty bad. You cannot always be sure they are gone for good. Even if you clean all the infected, the naturally growing spores could restart the infection. Story 43. It all depends on which zombie apocalypse we are talking about. If it is a 28 days later zombie or the Last of Us outbreak, it would be very different compared to the Walking Dead scenario. I think I would survive the initial outbreak, but after 3 years, once most food runs out, it would be tougher to want to keep going. Story 44. Probably for 2 to 3 days since I live on a pretty high floor, but it depends on the zombies. I would rather kill myself. Story 45. 1. I have a 12-gauge shotgun with plenty of ammunition, a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson with the same, and 3.22 caliber firearms, also with lots of ammunition. 2. I go straight to Costco to get as much canned food as possible, bags of dog food, and canned dog food, then go to PetSmart and do the same. I do have a dog, but the intention is to have food for myself and my children. 3. I stop by Home Depot to get as many 5-gallon buckets as possible, then go home and fill them all with water. 4. Before the internet goes out, I learn how to open a fire hydrant and what tools I would need to do so, then acquire them. 5. I hole up in my basement with the provisions I have gathered and wait for things to settle down. Story 46. Full plan in place. Go kit, 4-wheel drive, gas kits, fishing poles, seeds, shells, and a place to hide out on the Florida-Alabama border with a well. Story 47. The threat is not zombies. It is people. How everyone acted during COVID-19 demonstrates how dangerous a zombie outbreak would be. In reality, if something like that truly happened, all people would have to do is settle in for 2 to 3 weeks and let black putrefaction occur. Then, there would just be puddles of zombie goo all over the place. However, humans, the dumbest species on Earth, would use it as an opportunity to kill each other, loot, and cause as much chaos as possible because humans are a vile species. Story 48. I think I have an above-average chance because I am a bit of a prepper. I know how to hunt and am acquainted with many weapons. I have excellent aim. I know how to build weapons and have done so for many years. I have enough land to plant crops and survive from them. I have developed hydroponic systems, power generators, and other types of devices. I have a small computing cluster capable of running multiple large language models. It is powered by renewable energy. Eventually, it will fail, but it can last long enough to provide valuable support. My homes are built like bunkers. They are not very aesthetic but are very functional with very thick walls. Story 49. Depends on the zombies. Walking Dead? Yes, I will be around for a bit. I am more worried about people left than the zombies. World War Z? No. Story 50. No. I got the munchies tonight and ate literally all my snacks. If it starts tomorrow, I hope I can at least order some food through DoorDash or do a curbside pickup at the grocery store first. Let me restock so I can hunker down for however long. Story 51. I have people I care about, so I would want to live long. Perhaps on my own I could keep going, but having a family with different opinions might hinder my own survival. My best hope is that the military would need my skills and enlist me, But feeding and housing 4 people, where 3 could be a potential drain, won't be a priority. Story 52. I may have odds against me, not because I am athletic or skilled, quite the opposite. It is just that the place where I live is not really populated. Story 53. I have a cabin in northern Wisconsin that I would take my wife and children to if I can leave where I live. I think we would make it. Story 54. The zombies will be well fed at the start because you only have to be faster than the slowest person. Therefore, overweight people die first and zombies get well fed on that human wagyu meat. Story 55. No. I can barely survive in the modern world with all the conveniences at my disposal. I do not think I can actually survive a real zombie apocalypse scenario with death and danger around every corner. Story 56. Yes. I survived a month in Project Zomboid. By default, I have the ability to survive that long until a month later when a zombie bites me because I was careless. Story 57. I certainly have the survival skills and could probably survive a few weeks, but I do not think I would be able to endure it and make a mistake that would lead to a negative outcome. Story 58. Type 1 diabetes has really put a crimp in my zombie apocalypse plan. Movies overestimate the difficulty of surviving the zombie apocalypse. Give me full body armor, an elevated platform, and a sharp stick. Story 59. No. I am out of shape and honestly would not want to continue living in a world where I am actually fighting for survival every day. Story 60. No. I have many liabilities and faults. Mainly, I am a father of a toddler who would at least slow me down and at most be the cause of my injury. I am also fairly out of shape. Story 61. I probably can if I get the basic resources like water, some small snacks, and a weapon. But since I have a family to protect, I will probably freak out. If I were alone, then definitely bring it on. Story 62. I live in a highly populated area. Absolutely not. My city is surrounded by more cities. We are huge. If I were out in the country, totally. But here, no. I bet I could get maybe 2 or 3 blocks before being overwhelmed by a horde unless it is really slow, really stupid zombies with terrible motor skills. Story 63. I am handy, good with firearms, athletic, and have watched the zombie movies. I am still pretty sure I would die. Story 64. Yes, because my neighborhood is partially surrounded by a body of water, and there are only 3 bridges to enter the area. I think we could hold off the choke points. Story 65. I have the game plan in my head all ready to go, but I know I would probably slip, hurt my back, and be a horde's lunch. Story 66. No, I do not think so. I am not very coordinated, and I feel like I would miss when using weapons to defend myself, and then I would get bitten. Story 67. The duration depends on the type of zombie. For Walking Dead or Night of the Living Dead, it is 100%. For 28 Days Later, Zombie Nation, or The Last of Us, it may be a few days or weeks at best. Story 68. I think I could. My region is covered in dense wilderness with no one around for miles. I know how to survive in the wilderness just fine, so for me it would be like camping for the rest of my life. Story 69. Nope. Mission impaired. The zombies directly in front of me are not a problem. I can see them and run the other way, but I have literally no peripheral vision, so I would probably run right into the zombie that is standing off to the side. Story 70. I am not built for a zombie apocalypse. You have to be ruthless and alert all the time. I know I am not that person. I would rather die than live that kind of life. Story 71. It's coming into summer. I'm reasonably confident that it will last until the heat comes and the zombies dry out or are eaten. Story 72. Definitely not. Regardless of the type of zombie, I am more worried about other people. We have seen some horrific behavior during coronavirus disease. Now imagine that when there is a more serious threat. Not to downplay the seriousness of coronavirus disease, but I rank something that can either raise the dead or something like the Rage virus from the 28 Days Later franchise higher on that list. Story 73. If you survive for 2 months, your odds are pretty good. After all, nature will quickly take care of zombies. Metabolism, entropy, weather, parasites, and carnivores will make short work of human bodies that are not properly cared for. Muscles will atrophy, joints will deteriorate, and movement speed will decrease rapidly. Surviving 2 months is probably not very hard if you can stay indoors with a water supply and a well-stocked pantry and refrigerator. Story 74. Yes, I have a will to survive that I do not particularly want or understand. However, my need to continue outweighs many other things. Story 75. I reckon younger me would have been okay. I went through a phase of trying to endure things when I was in my early teens. By things, I mean if I was cold, I'd just accept it, or if I was hungry, I'd wait until I was really hungry. Nothing too serious, but things like that. I also went through a phase of training for an apocalypse, focusing on stamina and strength rather than looks in the gym. No wonder I got bullied. Now, however, at 23, I am too old, my knees hurt, and my back hurts. I'll go until my partner gets eaten and then probably peace out. Story 76. At my peak in my 20s, I would have a chance. These days, no, I would be toast. All the more reason to get back in shape. Story 77. You are not only dealing with zombies, but also roving gangs of sociopaths who will kill anyone with food, potable water, medicines, firearms, gasoline, whiskey, or drugs. They will also be rapists. No one has time for that. Story 78. I don't have a choice about whether I survive. My son needs me. He is 4 years old. There aren't enough zombies to keep me from him. Story 79. Not worried at all. No heartbeat means no flowing blood. No blood flow means no ability to move muscles. Can't move your muscles? That means you can't move. Gravity doesn't magically stop working. Story 80. I would drive to my local Walmart, take candy, chocolate, and bakery items, grab a couple of machetes, go home, barricade the door, and eat as if the world was ending. Then I would try to survive for a while. Once my family started to die or I was surrounded with no chance of escape, I would have a plan B to take myself out before they could harm me. Story 81. I live in a major metropolitan city, so probably not for long. Even if I had it in me to do whatever it takes to survive, I will inevitably get blindsided and die from something. Story 82. I live rurally in Vermont on top of a steep hill. There are several places in my woods on a ridge with clear shots to any zombie coming up the hill, 1,000 feet from my house. They are very slow. I have been prepared since the lockdown with enough food to last 2 months. I have solar generators and dogs to warn me when they are coming. I can hold out for a while. I also know the terrain well, and it is rough. As I said, they are very slow. Story 83. I'll live it up Zom 100 style. I used to want to be the survivalist who makes it to the endgame, but at this point, I'll just go all out until I crash and get a high score doing it. Gather a lot of resources, read many books, listen to all my CDs in the dark, try to keep my cats alive as long as I can. Other than that, I don't have any plans to try to keep humanity going. Good luck to the mushrooms, you are up next. Story 84. On what timeline? Week? Definitely. Month? Probably. Year? Probably, but it will be a struggle. I have a supply of dried food, materials for barter in a post-apocalyptic society, and protection measures at the house, or do I? I camp a lot, so I am kind of prepared to rough it. Story 85. I do not make it past 8 seconds without needing to put on my reading glasses to perform any simple task. Story 86. Survive until when? Like survive until I would have lived if there had not been an apocalypse? Unless society is reestablished quickly, absolutely not. Losing modern medicine alone would drastically decrease my lifespan. Survive a few days? Sure, I probably could stretch out the food I have in my house for a few days. Story 87. Depends on the type of zombies. If they are actively decaying, then once winter arrives, it would be relatively easy. I do not think northern country people would have much trouble in a situation like that. Story 88. I have a negative 10.5 prescription. My glasses break, I die. I would probably just lie down and die on day 1. I do not need all the stress of surviving. Story 89. Yes and no. I once took an online zombie survival test. It predicted that I would survive the first 2 months of the zombie apocalypse before I meet my end at the hands of a raider. Story 90. I have taken the Can You Survive a Zombie Apocalypse test and got the highest scores of anyone I know. Even with that, it said I would only last 90 days on my own. I guess I am just not good at living off the land, but I am good at making sure my group stays zombie-free. Story 91. I will probably be one of the first to die. I can barely make it through a single day without hurting myself. Story 92. Fast zombies like World War Z? No. I am drinking scotch and watching Raquel Welch movies in the garage with the car running. Slow zombies like in The Walking Dead? For the win. I have not played 200 hours of State of Decay and acquired 3 old snowblowers to mount on the front of my car for nothing. Story 93. I have an autoimmune disease that requires extremely rare medications and am allergic to mammal meats. So I cannot live off hunting. I am not well suited to post-collapse life. Story 94. I live in an area where I can get into some pretty swampy wooded areas. That would make things a lot easier. I also know a few people personally who would prefer not to deal with it. I could probably manage for quite a while, even against some of the faster varieties of zombies. Other people would not be much of an issue either, because who really wants to go through the trouble of a leech-infested waist-deep swamp? But at the end of the day, we are social creatures. How long until I start talking to the poor souls who get trapped in the mud? Or making a volleyball with straw for hair? Madness takes everyone sooner or later. I think I would end it before that happened, at least I hope. Story 95. After experiencing what a pandemic does to society, I never allowed myself to reach a point of desperate survival. Therefore, I cannot say what I would be capable of in an apocalypse-level scenario, but what I do know about myself is that I adapt. Story 96. I can sit unnoticed for a month. People ask if I am new here after I have been here 2 years. I can let everyone evacuate, panic, and fight while I wait for the least resistance. Living people are more difficult. Then I raid the neighbors who have left for food and essentials. Story 97. Probably not. I am likely the only person in my state who has a concealed carry permit but does not own a firearm. Story 98. For a while, I would head to my parents' house. It is 300 acres of farmland on the highest point in the county. It would take a long time for zombies to eventually wander out there. If they did, I believe they would not instinctively walk up such a steep incline to get there. Maybe not many of them. I do not know. But if they do, it is a farm with a good number of guns, endless vegetables, and beef. A few years back, people were breaking into cars parked in the country a couple of miles away. My father installed a bunch of outdoor cameras around the house and a gun safe with fingerprint fast access. I do not know if I will make it forever, but it is the best chance I have of surviving as long as I can. There is a scene in the original Dawn of the Dead movie series where a bunch of farmers in lawn chairs pick off zombies when they wander up to the farm. That would be us for a while. Story 99. Oh no, the zombies are eating me. Oh no, I had so much to live for. Story 100. I would give it my all for sure. I think I could survive for a while, but I am not a hunter or gatherer, so I would probably eventually starve to death. Story 101. Depends on the kind of zombie. Left 4 Dead, I am hero, or dying like mutated zombies. No way in hell. Slow, rotting, unintelligent zombies? You probably need to endure 6 months before they are all bones, so that is much more doable. Story 102. If the power holds out, I bet we have 6 weeks of food in this house, 8 weeks if we reduce to 2 meals per day. I have already observed my neighbors and their property. I believe the man across the street has a well, so I will trade with him for water. People need bicycles to move quickly and quietly. I live 5 minutes from Costco, Walmart, and Kroger. I would easily trade meals and supplies with others who did the gathering and took risks. I am mostly passive and would feed a murderer a good meal to make him my friend. I am passive but also worldly and objective. If I make friends and provide safe haven to someone who is against others and zombies, it is a good investment to keep him around, fed, and feeling positive towards me and my group. By the way, I have really been kidnapped. I just talked and hung out and did not cause trouble. Story 103. I can most likely survive for a month or so and have a solid plan in place. If the situation has not resolved itself by then, I am done for. Story 104. I am only surviving today because there is a paycheck at the end of the month. I will give up the moment I run out of food. Story 105. No, I have diabetes. Otherwise, I would probably survive a couple of months or years. As long as I keep my book called How to Survive in Zombie Territory, I will be fine. Story 106. Longer than the average person, but not as long as we will be once the homestead is set up. If it is airborne, we probably will not catch it since we are still masking. The main issue is my wife needs medication to live, and if she is gone, so is my motivation. We could start hunting people or animals for their thyroids, I suppose. Story 107. I am not taking the chance because zombie apocalypses do not have trustworthy people around. Story 108. Power went out the other day for my wife and me due to a bad storm. We were unprepared. The basement flooded, and our flashlights were either not working or low on battery. We couldn't find a working lighter to light our candles. We were sweating heavily because of the humidity and ended up just drinking our whiskey. If a zombie apocalypse occurred, we wouldn't last an hour. Story 109. Absolutely. I have weapons, ammunition, hunting skills, basic survival skills, carpentry and automotive repair skills, a defensible cabin, off-road vehicles, and most importantly, the will to survive and protect my family. All I need is someone who knows how to grow food and an electrician. Story 110. We are an hour and a half from the nearest city. We have farm animals, large gardens, wells, solar power, generators, and extensive fuel supplies. We likely have around 10,000 rounds of ammunition, a few dozen firearms, and live in a valley, with 2 roads leading in. Both roads have large bridges crossing rivers that isolate the area and could be easily controlled. We know all our neighbors who are in similar situations, so the few of us working together would have no problem holding our own. Story 111. I live across the street from a library that has a fallout shelter in the basement. However, I would need to make multiple trips to bring over my group of cats. Story 112. Could I survive? Yes, I have that determination in me. Would I survive? No, I am logging off immediately. Story 113. Can I? Yes. Rural location with easy access to food and fresh water. The biggest threat would be people with guns, not zombies. Story 114. It depends on the type of zombie and who survived with me. If it is like I Am Legend, do I even want to be the last person? Story 115. I could, but the world I have to survive in is difficult. I would rather let a zombie bite me and get it over with. Story 116. Being ripped apart by zombies sounds painful. A gunshot to the head or even overdosing on pills seems less so. I would like to try to survive for a bit just to see if I could, but after a while it would get mundane, and I would rather go out in a way that does not involve painful shredding and biting of live flesh. Story 117. No, first, I am overweight. I have epilepsy, so I need to rely on medication and currently only have a couple of weeks' supply on hand. I live in a city, which means escaping is challenging. The growth of a zombie horde makes it nearly impossible to survive. I also have my wife and pets to keep alive, as well as other family members. At this point, it would be sheer luck to escape and stay alive. Additionally, my city is situated between the sea and steep hills, almost mountains, which limits the possible escape routes. Story 118. No, and what is the point? Everything good would be gone. What is the point of surviving if everything is a struggle just to stay alive? Story 119. With supplies, maybe not. With my anxiety and no clear thought process in scary, chaotic moments, no. I've tried playing Call of Duty. I just freak out and shoot randomly. Story 120. A big part of this depends on where the outbreak begins. If it is overseas, I honestly think that most people would be fine, especially considering the research done during coronavirus disease. If it starts with my neighbor, I am dead. That being said, I would like to think I would last longer than most people. I am in good shape, I can garden and cook to an extent, I am reasonably mechanically inclined, and if the worst comes to worst, I am a decent shot with pretty much any gun you hand me. Story 121. No, I am smoking all my cannabis and taking all of my medication and taking a bubble bath. I am not trying to survive this. Story 122. I need the United States military's entire arsenal, all the medical equipment from the hospitals and Willie Nelson's marijuana supply, and I got it. Story 123. Yes, but mainly because I have children and I want to fight for their survival. I have a friend who said she would just take her whole family out as soon as possible. Story 124. Let's say the zombies are based on The Walking Dead, and I could build my own farm with a sustainable food and water source. I would still die to human raiders. People all say they will share and work together until resources are not enough, and they start taking from others. Story 125. I've got enough weapons to supply a team, rations, a few water filters, and a bag of survival gear. I'll be fine. Story 126. I feel like I have the ideal setup now that I think about it. I would run everything from my motorcycle for easy access through places. I also have guns, so I won't have to go out looking for any. My only issue is food from the start. Other than that, I'm fine. I would probably make it a mission to find a Stark electric bike or something similar. It has no noise and can reach 60 miles per hour, but the issue is electricity or using a generator. However, I don't think silent generators exist yet. Story 127. I have a hard drive packed full of survival information. Also, I live in Kansas, so I would find a solitary farm and relax. Story 128. I feel that realistically, most world governments' armies would quickly eliminate the zombies, and the situation would be resolved within a few months. Story 129. I am hard to kill. Many times I thought I would be dead, but here I am. Every day is a blessing now, but I do not think God or the devil wants me, at least not yet. Story 130. Absolutely not. If it all of a sudden happened, there is no way anyone would survive, including myself. However, if you let me know a week in advance, I might have a very slim chance of dying a little faster. Story 131. World War Z or The Walking Dead. I would do okay. I think the premise of World War Z would have those zombies ignoring me due to the cancer and health issues. The Walking Dead, I could release them from this mortal coil. Now 28 days later, zombies. I am out. Story 132. I have a gun, ammunition, some canned food, and a few other supplies. I am prepared for about a week. Then I am in serious trouble. If I make it a week. Story 133. No. I have always stated that if something like that happens, I would probably kill myself. I would not want to survive in an apocalyptic world with no medicine, electricity, internet, food, and so on. Even if I had the mental fortitude to survive, I am chronically ill. One flare-up day and I am in serious trouble. Story 134. Yes. Where I live can easily be cut off from the mainland, and we have the largest farm on this side of the Mississippi, so that probably means something. Story 135. I could. I do not know if I would want to survive, however. I may try to protect the children in the neighborhood, though. That might be a good project. Story 136. Walking Dead. Yeah. Pretty much anything else, and no. I'm pretty good at networking, so I'm confident I'd be able to stick to groups. I'm more concerned about other humans than the walkers themselves, and as bad as it is, I would do anything to be on the winning side in those scenarios. Story 137. I am an introvert, so I would avoid the actual virus entirely. My house has a generator, so power would last for a little while as well. I think I could kill zombies, but human raiders are defeating me with no effort. I estimate I would survive a month at most. Story 138. I recently completed extensive forest firefighting training. Spending time in the wilderness will be easy if I have to do it for years. Story 139. It depends on what the zombies are like. Are they slow and unintelligent, or are they fast and strong? Can they fight? Story 140. I was born in the 1980s, a child of the 1990s. I was shaped in the early 2000s. I have lived through wars, financial crises, pandemics, and global instability. A zombie apocalypse feels like just another Tuesday. Simple rules to live by. Do not trust anyone. Spam calls have taught this lesson to my generation. Always double tap. I have seen enough movies. Stockpile toilet paper for the early part of the outbreak. The weak will use it for bartering. Story 141. Nobody will. Look how people changed during COVID-19. If a zombie plague were added, we would all be dead because the experts with all the government secrets they gathered from YouTube are too smart. Story 142. I think I have a better chance than most. I live in a rural area and drive a truck designed for off-road use. My husband and I both have building, carpentry, and woodworking skills. We own many tools and supplies for making things. I am also a fast runner. Story 143. Maybe. I'm a nurse, so I have some useful skills. I am also in a big city and an assumed casualty. I feel like I could negotiate my usefulness to a nearby gang or someone with a yacht. I can shoot a gun, climb, swim, and run stairs. I can also use pole arms. A few years ago, my asthma was much worse, and I would not have had much hope without a good stockpile of inhalers. Now, I am in much better shape. If I make it out of the city, I can build a fire, forage, fish, hunt, and cook. Story 144. I could survive for a while, but I am older now and I have a chronic injury that I need to manage. It is only going to get worse over time. I have nerve damage in my feet. It is not incapacitating yet, but I cannot run like I used to. However, I did hike across Scotland a couple of years ago, so I am not stuck in the house. I want to stick around as long as possible to teach everything I can to my children before I pass away. Story 145. I'm already a loner. I have survived my entire life. I am trained in many things and very resourceful. I have been dreaming and having nightmares about it my whole life. If nothing else, I am good at surviving and think I am better equipped than most. Story 146. I will celebrate just like the master of ceremonies of Zom 100 bucket list of the dead. Since I live in the Himalayan mountain range, I am not sure I will last. The cold will help preserve their rotting corpses from decomposition. People from tropical regions have the best chance of surviving a zombie apocalypse. Story 147. No, and to be honest, I would not want to. It is not the zombies I would be worried about, but the other survivors. I could plant some crops, keep chickens and goats, sheep or cattle for meat, milk and eggs. If living near the coast or fertile waterways, I could fish as well. But living that life just invites people to kill you for your stuff. Story 148. Yes, for a while. We would hole up in our crawl space or attic and survive off the food I have managed to store. We could live for a few months if we ration the food. It would be miserable for a while, but not impossible. I need more fuel canisters, though. I am running low. Story 149. Survive? I would live. You are telling me I no longer need to care about the law? I am making change words and breaking into every bank and store to make a collection for this situation and stuffing my beds full of dollars. I am breaking into Home Depot and stealing all the memory foam mattresses so I can make the biggest pillow fort at home. Assuming these zombies are the slow, stupid, shambling kind, all I would need to do is get some human corpses, fit them with a speaker that regularly makes random human noises some blocks away, and I would be safe. Is it worth the effort? Absolutely. Everything is free and now it is nearly a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of effort and reward. No working 8 hours only to earn a small sum of money. Story 150. I've thought about this. Realistically, we would have fast zombies that slow down over time as their muscles deteriorate. I think if you survive the first few weeks, you'd be able to survive as long as you can take care of yourself. With that in mind, I believe I'd be able to survive. I'm still physically fit and tall, which would allow me to grab and climb more easily. I live in a compound with 4 villas surrounded by a big wall and gates. I assume people would try to run, get in their cars, and escape. I would stay, barricade the gates, and remain inside. I work in maintenance as a certified electrician with experience in all mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and civil systems, so I'd be capable of building necessary structures. I believe I'll be able to survive. Story 151. I would not want to, but I probably would. The anger that I am still alive in this situation is what would keep me going. I also love foraging, martial arts, and natural skills, so I would have a decent amount of friends and people who come to me for help to survive. Then I would feel like I have to stay alive. So probably, I just would not be happy about it. Story 152. Yes. My husband will protect me and our baby. But having a baby in an apocalypse would be very difficult, and you know what? I'm getting too stressed out. I don't want to play anymore. Story 153. Why would I want to survive just to be afraid and starving all the time? Death is a perfectly acceptable and obviously peaceful alternative. Story 154. No chance if they are fast zombies. My cardiovascular fitness is poor at the moment. Classic slow zombies are no problem. I live by the coast, so I could probably find a boat to escape on or get to an island somewhere. Story 155. Yes, I would survive. But it all depends on the virus. How is it caught? Airborne or by bite? I have played so many games and thought about this. All you need is a little fort and a spear. Just keep stabbing through gaps. Unless they are Dawn of the Dead zombies, I'll be fine. World War Z was so forgettable. That movie didn't happen. These zombies are just a bore fest. What a trash movie. Story 156. Most definitely. I live in a fairly remote place far from large cities. I am stocked up on food in the freezers, canned goods, guns, and ammunition. The zombie apocalypse could have started last weekend, and I'm not sure I would know about it yet. Story 157. No, my body is built for running. I am skinny. I could run from them, get to higher places, and starve there. That is the big disadvantage of being skinny, starving within a week or two. Story 158. I feel like I would survive for a good while. My issue would be obtaining weapons, but I would find a way. Over time, I would probably end my life, but I would certainly make a list of things to do before I die. Small things like finally having the courage to slash someone's tires or establish a garden. However, the other survivors would make me want to end my life. I would probably only try to survive as long as possible so I can end others if needed. Story 159. I live for Korean barbecue, lengua tacos, ramen, hot pot, garlic noodles, and apple pies. I would rather end it if I can no longer eat those foods. Story 160. What type of zombies? Shaun of the Dead or 28 Days Later / World War Z? If it is the latter, the majority of the population is wiped out based on fitness levels alone. Story 161. I will be here for a while as I live in a very remote place. However, I might get hurt while scouting the pub for more alcohol. Story 162. People walking slowly and drifting across every pavement, blocking every exit and entrance, making noises, and having no awareness of what is going on around them. Just an average day in my local town. I'll be fine. Story 163. Je survivrai probablement un certain temps simplement en restant loin des gens. Pas un héros, mais plutôt du type bunker. Story 164. I have a better chance than most, but I would probably get bitten trying to take care of my family. They are all unable to take care of themselves and would be in serious trouble in modern society. Story 165. I would try to survive as long as my mother. If she dies, I would follow. There is no reason to keep living without loved ones. Also, in the long term, a zombie apocalypse is not survivable. Story 166. I think so. I am able to stay calm and focused in a crisis and do not get very emotional. I can also be ruthless and decisive when the situation requires quick thinking. A key issue would be securing food long term. Story 167. I mean, it all depends on the style of breakout. For me, yes in most situations and no in a few. But if I did die, whoever finds my belongings will be like when Kentucky finds that Hummer and that redneck stash. Story 168. Ever since The Walking Dead came out, I have thought about clearing out Walmart, blocking all the exits, and living there. It has everything. Story 169. I have a hidden bunker on my property, and I could literally just chill for a few years with all the supplies I have stocked up. Assuming the zombies are like the zombie deer virus, humans who would be infected would die within a week due to eating things they cannot actually digest. Zombie deer can survive because they can eat almost anything green and be fine for a while as their bodies rot away. Humans, however, cannot eat many plants. So really, you just need to last a couple of weeks for most people to die out. After that, it's boiling water and working with survivors. Story 170. I'll survive no problem because I won't be getting swarmed by flies, crows, buzzards, coyotes, and any number of common carrion eaters considerably faster and more coherent than the mobile deceased. I'll probably just sit back and watch nature take its course. Story 171. Yes, because I have the plot armor of the main character. I survived 6 near-death experiences in 20 years of my life. A zombie apocalypse is a piece of cake. I cannot say the same for my close people, non-player characters. Story 172. No, I live in a massive city in Europe, so it is very dense. My emergency supplies consist of just a box of ramen packets, and my weapon would be a knife. Yeah, that is not going to happen. Story 173. What would get most people killed would be the mental toll of suddenly living without modern amenities. Story 174. I live in a desert in a militarized society. I give myself 50-50 odds. If the government can keep the zombies at bay, probably. If they cannot, I am pretty sure I can get out alive, but a lack of water will kill me in short order. Story 175. Yes, easy. I doubt a zombie apocalypse would actually last very long with the firepower we have now. Story 176. Depends on the zombies. Brain dead, rotting, walking dead kind, decent shot minus the people. Runners, mutants, and others, World War Z movie kind, no. Story 177. I want to survive, but to be honest, the population is going to be the bane of my existence. Death is almost inevitable unless I have exceptional levels of protection. Story 178. Are we talking about fast zombies or slow zombies? Do people randomly get infected through the air or by other means? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.